Have you ever laid in bed, exhausted, only to realize your body is still while your mind won't stop running? Thoughts rush in like uninvited guests, regrets from yesterday, worries about tomorrow, small moments replayed until they feel larger than life. And suddenly, the silence of the night becomes a storm inside your own head. This is the hidden battlefield most people never prepare for. Not the noise of the world, but the noise of their own thoughts. The Stoics knew it well. The mind can either be your prison or your freedom. Left untamed, it drags you into fear, envy, and endless overthinking. Trained with discipline, it becomes your strongest ally, a fortress no storm can breach. Think of Marcus Aurelius, whispering to himself in the dark, reminding his mind what truly mattered. Think of Epictetus teaching that freedom begins not with the world changing, but with us mastering how we think about the world. The question is simple yet piercing. Are you steering your thoughts, or are they steering you? Tonight, as you listen, you'll be invited to step into that quiet space between impulse and intention, where clarity is born. Not to escape your thoughts, but to learn how to hold them, shape them, and transform them into strength. Stay with me, because what follows may change the way you live the rest of your life. As we step into the first chapter, picture yourself standing in front of a door. You push against it with all your strength. You shake the handle, pull, even kick, but nothing happens. The door will not open, no matter how desperately you try. Hours pass. You grow frustrated, drained, and bitter. Then at last, you realize something devastating. The door was never yours to open. The key never belonged to you. This is how many of us live our lives. We wrestle with what cannot be changed. We pour our energy into battles we cannot win. We beg the world to bend when the world has no interest in yielding. And in doing so, we chain ourselves to suffering that was never necessary. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." Simple words, but they cut deeper than most people ever dare to face. This single line is not just philosophy, it is liberation. It is the difference between a life wasted in resistance and a life rooted in peace. The question is whether we will learn to live by it. Think of the last time someone spoke ill of you behind your back. Maybe it was a co-worker questioning your competence. Maybe a friend doubting your intentions. Maybe family whispering judgments you never had the chance to confront. Your heart raced. Your stomach tightened. Anger rose, begging you to fight back, to prove them wrong. But here is the harsh truth. No matter what you say, no matter how carefully you explain, you cannot climb inside their mind and rewrite their thoughts. You cannot force their mind. That has never been yours. What you can control is yourself. You can choose to respond with dignity. You can choose not to let their poison enter your bloodstream. You can choose silence, or clarity, or even laughter. That is real control. That is where strength lives. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was not speaking as a philosopher in comfort, but as an emperor drowning in responsibility, betrayal, and endless crises. If he, seated at the heart of the Roman world, could remind himself daily that control ends at the edge of the self, then so can we. Now imagine a different scene. You are driving home. The rain begins to fall hard, slamming against the windshield. Traffic slows, horns blare. A car cuts in front of you recklessly, nearly grazing your bumper. In that instant, your blood surges. You grip the wheel tighter, ready to lash out, ready to scream, ready to let anger flood your veins. But pause. What do you actually control? You cannot stop the rain. You cannot turn the light green. You cannot reach into that other car and demand courtesy. The only thing left is you, your breath, your grip, your choice to let anger drive or to remain steady in the storm. This is what the Stoics meant when they drew the line between what is up to us and what is not. It is not theory. It is not cold detachment. It is training to face chaos without letting chaos seep inside you. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Think about it. How many times has your mind spun stories far worse than the truth? The gossip, the mistake, the imagined disaster, they are not reality. They are storms created by the refusal to accept limits, by trying to control what was never ours. But there is another way, and it begins with a deceptively simple question. Is this within my control? Ask it when someone criticizes you. You cannot control their words, but you can control whether you let those words define your worth. Ask it when you are anxious about the outcome of an exam, a meeting, a deal, a performance. You cannot control the result, but you can control how you prepare, how you study, how you breathe, how you sleep. Ask it when life hands you pain, rejection, or loss. You cannot stop the waves from coming, but you can decide whether you will drown in them or learn how to stand in the surf. Each time you ask that question, you pull yourself back from the edge. You return to the present. You reclaim your energy from illusions, and you begin slowly to train your mind like a warrior. Training does not happen once, it happens daily. Every insult, every disappointment, every storm is another drill. The world is unpredictable. People will misunderstand you. They will reject you. They will hurt you. But when you practice this discipline, you will no longer be consumed. You will watch the storm instead of being swept away by it. Think of a mountain. Winds whip against it. Rains erode its surface. Lightning strikes. But the mountain stands, unmoved. Does the storm stop? No. But the mountain remains. That is what you must become. Not immune, not numb, but rooted. Rooted in the one thing no storm can touch, your response. The beauty of this truth is that it cannot be taken from you. You may lose money, reputation, friendships, opportunities, but the choice of how to meet those losses remains in your hands, and that is where real power begins. Now consider the cost of ignoring this lesson, a life spent in constant reaction. Every rude word controls you. Every delay enrages you. Every uncertainty cripples you. Slowly, you lose yourself. You become a puppet pulled by the strings of circumstance, dancing to a tune you never chose. And the saddest part is that it feels normal, because so many live this way, mistaking chains for freedom. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic trains daily to sever those chains, to live not at the mercy of circumstance, but at the mercy of reason, to be calm in chaos, to be free even in hardship, to stand where others collapse. Happiness and freedom, Epictetus said, begin the moment you fully grasp this truth. They do not begin when life gets easier, when people finally respect you, when the storms subside. They begin now, in this very breath, when you choose to hold on only to what is yours and let the rest fall away. So when you find yourself again at that locked door, pulling, pushing, begging it to open, stop, step back, ask the question, is this within my control? If the answer is no, walk away. There are other doors, and more importantly, there is the door within, the one that leads to peace, clarity, and freedom. That is the door you have always had the key for. Strength is not noise. It is silence that holds. It is roots that do not move. It is knowing the line between what belongs to you and what never will. Cross that line, and you will always suffer. Respect it, and you will finally be free. Entering the second chapter, picture this. A sharp glance cuts across the room, disapproval written in silence. A message arrives colder than ice, words chosen not to build, but to wound. Or perhaps in a meeting, your voice is brushed aside, your idea dismissed with a smirk. In those moments, the fire rises fast, your jaw tightens, your heart races. Instinct begs you to react, and yet hidden in plain sight, there is a pause, a gap, a sliver of space where freedom lives. Have you ever felt it? That fragile, fleeting second before the explosion, before words spill that you cannot take back. Most people miss it. They are dragged by the chain of emotion, slaves to the trigger. But the Stoics teach us to see that instant differently. They remind us that within it lies the miracle of choice. Viktor Frankl, who endured horrors beyond imagination, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." These words are not gentle theory, they are blood-tested truth, and the Stoics, centuries before him, were already sharpening this sword. Let's step deeper with a story. Imagine sitting in a crowded room. Your manager, without warning, criticizes your work unfairly in front of everyone. The sting is immediate. Your pride burns. The urge to fight back claws at your throat. This is the trigger. This is the moment most surrender to impulse. But a Stoic, even for 3 simple seconds, waits. Breath in, breath out. In those 3 seconds, you rise above instinct. You are no longer a victim of the moment, you are its master. Marcus Aurelius, a man who carried an empire on his shoulders, whispered to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice what he did not say. He did not promise control over the words of others, nor over the blows of fate. He spoke of the inner citadel, the fortress inside that no soldier, no slander, no storm can breach unless you open the gates. Strength, then, is not the loud reaction, the instant defense, the cutting comeback. Strength is restraint. Strength is the invisible act of holding the sword without swinging it. To govern yourself in the heat of provocation is to walk a path most never dare. For those without training, the mind is like a wild beast, reacting, lashing, consuming itself. But the trained mind, shaped by awareness and discipline, becomes the gatekeeper of the soul. It decides what enters. It decides what is released. Here's where practice transforms philosophy into power. The Stoics advised daily rehearsal, not abstract musings. One simple exercise, the 3-second stillness rule. Before you answer anger with anger, before you let hurt dictate your tongue, pause for 3 seconds. Just 3. Breathe. Remind yourself, this is the gap. In this gap, I choose who I am. At first, those seconds will feel impossible. The beast of instinct will snarl and thrash. You will want to break the silence, to let rage drive. But keep at it. Each pause is a victory. Each breath is a brick laid in the walls of your fortress. Over time, you will discover something astonishing. Life does not get easier. People will still criticize. Circumstances will still blindside you, but you will no longer be ruled by them. The chaos outside loses its grip when you hold fast inside. Let's advance with another picture. A child pokes a sleeping lion. The lion roars, leaps, attacks. Predictable. Weakness disguised as strength. But what if the lion simply opened its eyes, calm, unmoved? The child would step back in fear, for nothing is more unsettling than power under control. That is what mastery looks like. Not rage unleashed, but composure unbroken. Seneca warned, "A man who is angry at the world is always punished more than the world itself." When you react blindly, you suffer twice, once from the wound itself, and again from your own response. But when you claim the space between, you cut suffering in half. You carry only what is yours, not the burden others try to place upon you. This is not weakness. This is agency. To choose your response is to seize control of the only domain that has ever been yours. When you govern your reactions, you become untouchable. People may still insult you, betray you, misunderstand you, but they cannot own you. You stand unshaken because you refuse to sell your peace for the price of impulse. Now imagine a world where you trained this skill daily, where every trigger became an invitation, every insult a chance to practice, every storm a rehearsal for calm. Slowly, your mind would grow resilient, not because fate grew kinder, but because you became stronger, and those around you would see it. They would sense a gravity in you, an aura that comes not from force, but from discipline. This is the magnetic calm of the Stoic, the presence of someone who cannot be dragged into the mud. But here's the warning. Do not mistake this discipline as the finish line. To pause before reaction is the first stage, not the last. The Stoics went further. They prepared for storms long before the first drop fell. They practiced imagining the worst so that when it arrived, it found them ready. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. So, as we close this chapter, remember this. Every moment carries a gap, and in that gap, your true self waits. Step into it, and you will find freedom. Step out of it, and you will remain a slave to impulse. The choice is yours. And in the next stage, we descend into one of Stoicism's most profound practices, preparing in advance for loss, rejection, even death, not as pessimism, but as the ultimate shield. Because when the worst is already faced in the mind, reality can never shatter you. Are you ready to face it? As we step into the third chapter, imagine walking into the day with nothing but fragile hope. You expect the meeting to go smoothly. You expect friends to remain loyal. You expect your effort to be noticed and rewarded. And then, without warning, life breaks the script. A door closes in your face. Someone you trust betrays you. The project you poured your soul into collapses overnight. The slap is sudden. The sting lingers. And you find yourself shattered, not only by the event itself, but by the fact that you never prepared for it. Most people live this way. Their peace is tied to things unfolding according to plan, but plans fail, expectations shatter, and when they do, the unprepared mind crumbles. The Stoics knew this truth well. They refused to build their peace on wishful thinking. They did not abandon hope, but neither did they worship it. Instead, they trained their minds to face adversity before it arrived, so that when fate struck, they stood ready. Seneca once wrote, "Expect the worst so you can prepare your mind for the best." To modern ears it may sound grim, but to the Stoic this is not despair. It is discipline. It is not surrender. It is strength. It is the art of living with eyes open, of meeting reality on its own terms instead of being crushed by surprise. Now imagine Marcus Aurelius on a freezing battlefield, his empire besieged by war, plague ravaging his people, betrayal creeping from within his own court. He did not soothe himself with fantasies of calm seas. He reminded himself that life was not a dance to be glided through, but a fight to be wrestled with. He wrote, "Life is more like wrestling than dancing. Wrestling is messy. You will be pushed, thrown, and bruised. But if you know that going in, you brace yourself better, and you rise faster after every fall." Here's where Stoic practice sharpens into a blade. Premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. A discipline of the mind. Before every important step, take 5 quiet minutes. Sit still, breathe, then walk your mind through the shadows. Imagine the rejection, imagine the loss, imagine the collapse. Not to drown in fear, but to prepare for it. Ask yourself, if this happens, how will I respond? What will I do? What will I refuse to become? At first, this exercise feels heavy. You may think it invites anxiety, but the opposite is true. Fear grows strongest in the unknown. Once your mind has walked through the fire in advance, the flames lose their terror. The unexpected becomes expected. The shock disappears, and in its place comes calm readiness. Your brain stops spiraling and says instead, "I've been here before, I know what to do." That shift is where serenity is born. Consider Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She did not step into her tiny plane fueled by blind optimism. She knew that a single failure, an engine breakdown, a sudden storm, a navigational error could cost her life. She was not fearless because she ignored these dangers. She was fearless because she rehearsed them in her mind long before takeoff. She visualized radio silence, engine trouble, forced landings. She practiced the solutions. So when the real risks came, she met them not with panic, but with poise. That is Stoic courage. Do not run from fear. Walk straight through it. Do not let hope lull you into weakness. Let wisdom harden you into readiness. Amelia did not conquer the Atlantic on luck. She conquered it on mental preparation. Her victory was carved long before the flight, in the rehearsals of her mind. From here, we return to ourselves. Life will not always go your way. Friends will leave. Plans will fall apart. Dreams will stall. You will fall. But that is not failure. Not unless you surrender. True failure comes only when your mind collapses before the blow. When you give up the one power that was always yours, your ability to respond with strength. This practice builds a kind of mental immune system. Just as the body strengthens by being exposed to challenge, the mind strengthens by rehearsing adversity. When reality strikes, the prepared mind is not broken. It is simply activated. Panic belongs to those who never prepared. Poise belongs to those who did. Think of it this way. A soldier trains not in comfort, but in harsh simulations of war. Not because he loves pain, but because he knows that when the real battle comes, training will be his shield. Premeditatio malorum is your training ground. It is your rehearsal for the unpredictable. It is what transforms you from victim to warrior. Seneca also wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has already rehearsed their coming." That is the essence of this practice. You strip adversity of its teeth by facing it before it bites. You walk into the day no longer begging for perfection, but braced for reality. And in that bracing, you discover a paradox. When you expect difficulty, you actually experience more peace. Because nothing can truly surprise you anymore. The storms will still come. The winds will still break against your walls. But you will not collapse like those who trusted fragile expectations. You will stand firm because you have already stood there before in your mind. You are not meeting the storm as a stranger. You are meeting it as an old acquaintance, and because of that, it cannot rule you. So anticipate the worst, not to live in fear, but to live in freedom. Let your mind walk the dark paths before reality forces you onto them. And when the day comes, and it will, you will not panic. You will act, you will rise, and you will remain unshaken. From here, the Stoics take us one step further. They teach not only to prepare for adversity, but to embrace it, to turn obstacles themselves into fuel for growth. And that is where the real transformation begins. As we step into the 4th chapter, picture yourself behind the wheel on a quiet afternoon. The road is familiar, the rhythm of the drive steady. Then, out of nowhere, a car cuts sharply in front of you. Your foot slams the brake. Tires squeal. Your chest tightens. Blood surges to your face. And in an instant, anger explodes. Is this guy insane? You hear yourself think. Rage fills the cabin like smoke, choking out every other thought. But pause for a moment. What really happened here? Did the car itself plant that anger in your chest? Or was it the story you told yourself about the act, the judgment that it was reckless, dangerous, disrespectful that set the fire burning? Epictetus once said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." A line that cuts to the marrow of our existence. External events by themselves are neutral. They hold no emotion, no poison, no peace. It is our interpretation, our labeling of those events that gives birth to the storm inside us. The car cutting you off was just a car changing lanes, but your belief about it turned it into an attack. And that belief, not the car, made you furious. Now imagine another twist. What if you learned that the driver was rushing their child to the hospital, fighting every second to save a life? Suddenly, the heat in your chest softens. The same event that moments ago birthed fury now sparks compassion. What changed? Not the event itself, but your perception of it. Awareness reshaped the story, and with it, reshaped your emotions. Here's where the Stoics reveal a truth as sharp as a blade. Awareness is the root of all emotions. Your feelings flow not from the world, but from the lens through which you see it. And when you train yourself to notice that lens, you gain power over what once ruled you. Moving into another scene. You send a heartfelt message to someone you love. Minutes pass. Then hours. Still no reply. A heaviness creeps in. Thoughts whisper, "They don't care. I must not matter." Your heart tightens. Sadness floods in. But step back. What if the truth is simpler? What if they were busy, their phone dead, their day consumed by work? Suddenly your hurt dissolves. The silence was never an insult. It was your interpretation that made it so. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. The emperor who bore the weight of Rome knew that perception is the hinge on which peace turns. This is where awareness begins its work. To notice not only the world around you, but the movement of your own mind. To pause in the moment of reaction and realize, I am feeling anger, I am feeling hurt, I am feeling anxious. With that shift, you are no longer drowning in the ocean of emotion. You are standing on the shore, watching the waves. And from the shore, you can choose whether to step in or let them pass. Here's a practice. Write down a moment that left you furious, sad, or disappointed. Then rewrite it from another angle, perhaps more generous, perhaps more detached. The exercise is not about lying to yourself. It is about realizing that emotions are not carved in stone. They are shaped by stories. And stories can always be rewritten. Think of it like this. When you recognize your perspective, you expand the space between stimulus and response. That space is sacred. It is the forge where raw emotion can be hammered into strength. Anger can be softened into patience. Disappointment can be reshaped into learning. Hurt can harden into resilience. Each time you practice this awareness, you carve deeper channels of mastery into your soul. The untrained mind reacts like a wild animal, lunging at every shadow. The trained mind becomes a sentinel, standing guard at the gates of the inner citadel. It watches the thought enter, examines it, and decides, does this deserve to rule me, or will I let it pass? That is sovereignty. That is freedom. Let's step into another perspective. Think of the times you overreacted, snapped at a friend, carried bitterness for days, let anxiety rob you of sleep. Later, with distance, you saw the truth. It wasn't worth it. But in the heat of the moment, your lack of awareness made you a prisoner of reflex. Awareness is the key that unlocks that prison. It does not silence emotions. It puts you in command of them. Seneca warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Awareness dismantles that imagination. It forces us to ask, is this pain real, or is it a shadow cast by my thoughts? Most of the time, it is the shadow. And when you realize that, you reclaim peace. So train this muscle daily. Pause when you feel the surge rising. Name the emotion. Question the story behind it. Reframe it if you can, and watch as the same world that once tossed you around like a storm now becomes a place you navigate with calm. The events may not change, but you will. From here, the Stoics call us to practice in small things, so we are ready for the great. If you can master your reaction to a text left unanswered, you will be better prepared when life delivers heavier blows. If you can shift perspective when a driver cuts you off, you are rehearsing for the days when fate cuts deeper. Awareness is not weakness, it is power. To watch your own mind is to become more than a passenger in your life. It is to take the wheel back from chaos, and that is the road to freedom. Now, before we continue, pause and reflect. Has there been a moment recently when you overreacted? A word, a look, a silence that spiraled into more than it was? Share it below. Write just 1 or 2 words in the comments, a reminder to yourself of the story you are rewriting. And if these reflections speak to you, subscribe so you won't miss the next step on this path of stoic strength. Because in the end, the world may never be in your control. But awareness ensures your inner world always can be. And from that truth, we will step forward to an even deeper lesson. As we step into the 5th chapter, imagine a mountain path rising before you. It looks smooth from afar, almost inviting, but the moment you begin to climb, the ground changes. Stones roll under your feet, thorns tear at your hands, the air thins and burns your lungs. Every few steps, something blocks the way. Most travelers curse the path. They stop, they turn back. They complain that fate was unfair to place such obstacles in their way. But the Stoic looks closer and sees something hidden in plain sight. The obstacle is not blocking the path. The obstacle is the path. Marcus Aurelius wrote with piercing clarity, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not just a poetic phrase. It is a key to survival, a method for strength. Life was never designed to be smooth. Life is resistance, and resistance is training. Think of the gym. A man who never lifts a weight, who lies all day in comfort, never grows strong. Muscles demand strain. They grow only by being tested, stretched and torn, only to rebuild stronger than before. The mind is no different. Comfort softens it. Adversity shapes it. Every challenge is a weight in the gym of the soul. When you lift it, when you face it, when you breathe through the pain, you grow. Now, imagine a heartbreak. The person you loved rejects you. Your chest aches like a wound, pride bleeds, and every instinct begs you to collapse into self-pity. Through ordinary eyes, this is the end of the story. Through stoic eyes, it is an exercise. Pain becomes the barbell pressed into your hands. The questions you ask yourself are the repetitions. What does this rejection reveal about me? Where did I place my worth? What can I refine to become stronger, wiser, more grounded? With each honest answer, you lift. With each reflection, you grow. What could have crushed you instead forges you into something unshakable. Let's move to the workplace. A project you believed in collapses. A colleague misjudges you, spreading doubt about your competence. Your confidence wavers, anger stirs, disappointment sinks heavy into your chest. The untrained mind either lashes out or retreats into bitterness, but the stoic pauses. They see the rubble as raw material. They ask, what can this teach me about patience? How can I communicate more clearly next time? What does this reveal about my attachment to reputation? Suddenly, the failure becomes training. The insult becomes endurance. The loss becomes wisdom. Seneca warned, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Ease lulls us into weakness. Hardship forces us to clarify who we are. Each painful event strips away illusion and leaves us with truth. And truth, though sharp, always shapes us. But here is where many falter. They admire the idea of turning adversity into training, yet they do not practice it. Stoicism is not meant to be admired, it is meant to be lived. The training ground is not in books. It is in the life you are already living. Here's a simple practice. Write down the failures you have endured, the exam you failed, the promotion you lost, the friendship that ended in silence, the betrayal that left you hollow. At first, these may look like scars, but rewrite them as lessons. Ask, what did this moment train in me? Did it sharpen my patience? Did it force me into discipline? Did it teach me humility? Did it reveal a strength I never knew I had? In this light, your past no longer looks like a battlefield of losses. It becomes a training log, proof of growth. Consider another example. A young athlete trains for years to compete. One day, he breaks his leg. Most would call it ruin. But through discipline, he discovers new dimensions of himself. He studies strategy instead of speed. He builds mental toughness instead of physical dominance. When he returns, he is no longer just fast, he is wise. The injury became the weight that made him whole. This is the Stoic vision. Adversity is not a minus sign in life, but a plus. It does not subtract from you, it adds to you if you face it rightly. From here, something remarkable happens. When you stop fearing adversity and begin to accept it as inseparable from life, you feel lighter. Fear loses its teeth. You no longer shrink back at the shadow of difficulty. Instead, you lean into it. You no longer feel cursed by misfortune. You feel trained by it. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of fate and begin to see yourself as a warrior in training. Every wound is a scar of strength. Every fall is still a step forward. Epictetus, who lived as a slave before he became a philosopher, understood this deeply. He said, "Difficulties show what men are." He did not say difficulties create weakness. He said they reveal what was always inside you, and with each trial, you are given the chance to refine that inner core. Look back at your own story. Was it not the hardest seasons that taught you the most? The heartbreak that forced you to grow independent, the failure that humbled your pride and built discipline, the loss that carved out deeper compassion, the nights of despair that made the mornings of clarity shine brighter. Adversity has never truly been your enemy. It has always been your teacher, paving the road you could not yet see. At this stage, the lesson sharpens. A Stoic does not expect adversity to disappear. A Stoic expects adversity to arrive and expects themselves to grow because of it. To pray for a life without hardship is to pray for a body without bones. It would collapse under its own weight. Life demands weight. Growth demands resistance. Greatness demands trial. So when the road rises steep, when the storm breaks, when rejection cuts deep, remember, this is training. This is the gym where your spirit grows. What stands in the way has never been the enemy. It has always been the way. And as you walk with this spirit, something within you transforms. You do more than merely live. You grow day by day, hour by hour, struggle by struggle, until one day you realize the storms you once feared were the very winds that carried you forward. Entering the 6th chapter, imagine the very first moment of your day. The alarm rings. The sun waits beyond the window, but instead of rising, your hand reaches for the phone. One swipe, one scroll, and an hour dissolves into nothingness, a blur of headlines, photos, opinions. And when you finally look up, your spirit is no stronger, your purpose no clearer. You feel as though the day was stolen before it even began. That is the quiet power of undisciplined habit. It steals without noise, yet leaves you empty. If you do not master your habits will master you. And a mind mastered by habit cannot be trusted to remain calm when provoked, clear when panicked, or steady when defeated. Small daily surrenders build into a life of weakness. That is why the Stoics treated discipline not as decoration, but as survival. Moving deeper, let us remember, without discipline, philosophy is nothing but ink and air. With discipline, philosophy becomes breath itself, animating each step. To the Stoics, discipline was never cruelty, never a prison of denial. It was liberation from the chains of craving. They knew that every unchecked impulse, every indulgent whim, is another chain fastened around the soul. Restraint is not punishment, it is freedom. Picture the small rituals they practiced, journaling each dawn to examine their thoughts, rising early to greet silence before the noise of the world began, restraining appetites so that pleasure never ruled them, watching impulses as a guard watches the gate, deciding what enters and what leaves. These were not grand gestures. They were quiet repetitions, bricks laid one by one into the fortress of the mind. Now imagine this instead of scrolling away your morning. You rise early, sit before a blank page, and write 3 simple questions. How will I respond as a strong person? How will I face discomfort? How will I remain calm when misunderstood? 3 questions, no more than 5 minutes. And then 3 affirmations. I can remain calm. I am not defined by circumstances. I am the master of my own reactions. This is not ritual for ritual's sake. It is training. Each line is a repetition, a weight lifted, a seed planted, because the mind is like a muscle. Left idle, it grows soft. Worked daily, it grows strong. Every repetition forges a new reflex. The reflex of serenity in chaos. The reflex of patience in discomfort. The reflex of steadiness when insulted. Discipline transforms intention into instinct. Advancing further, let's expand the vision. Discipline does not end at the morning page. It stretches into how you eat, how you work, how you speak, how you rest. Each decision becomes a test. The Stoic does not ask, "Do I feel like this?" They ask, "Does this make me stronger, wiser, freer?" If yes, they embrace it. If no, they release it. In this way, they preserve themselves against the storms outside by first mastering the winds within. Here's where a paradox must be faced. Discipline is the parent of freedom. At first, it sounds like contradiction, but ask yourself, is the person who eats whatever craving demands, who lashes out at every spark of anger, who procrastinates whenever comfort whispers, are they free? Or are they shackled to their own instincts? Now look at the one who governs appetite, who breathes through anger, who moves even when weary. That one is free. For freedom is not the ability to do whatever impulse commands. Freedom is the power not to be commanded by impulse at all. Let's return to the morning ritual. Just 5 minutes to shape the day, to turn drifting into direction. 3 questions to brace for hardship. 3 affirmations to anchor the self. These are small seeds, yet when planted daily, they grow into a towering tree. A tree that does not bend with every storm, a tree that shields you with its branches of resilience. Discipline is not loud, it is not dramatic. It is quiet repetition, invisible to others, undeniable in its results. Here's a truth that takes time to accept. Discipline is not a sprint. It is not conquered in a single heroic act. It is a way of living. It asks not for bursts, but for patience. Not for perfection, but for persistence. The Stoics never sought sudden transformation. They sought steady sharpening day by day until serenity became second nature. At this stage, you realize something profound. Mastering your habits is the key to mastering your emotions. A person ruled by distraction cannot suddenly summon clarity in crisis. A person enslaved to indulgence cannot suddenly call forth endurance in hardship. The calm you hope to carry in life is forged in the small choices you make every morning, every hour, every breath. So let discipline be your daily companion. Let each act of restraint, each moment of awareness, be another brick in the fortress within. And over time you will find your mind no longer tossed about by the chaos outside. It becomes a calm domain where reason rules, a citadel unshaken by the noise of fortune, and from here the path opens to the final principle. If discipline is the fortress that guards your soul, then living in harmony with your values is the torch that lights your way. It is not enough to control habit, you must direct your strength toward meaning. That is where we turn next. As we step into the 7th chapter, imagine a tide rising without warning. One moment, the shore is calm. The next, a wave crashes so suddenly it pulls you off balance. This is how fleeting emotions strike. A burst of joy makes you forget your long-term purpose. A spike of anger tears composure from your grasp. A shiver of fear makes you retreat when courage was needed most. Emotions are powerful, yes, but they are also mercurial. They arrive without invitation and vanish without farewell. Epictetus warned us not to hand over the reins of our lives to passing impulses, for values endure while emotions flicker like sparks in the wind. To live by values is to cast anchor in the storm. Without it, every mood, every whim, Every passing glance from another becomes a current strong enough to steer your life into places you never meant to go. Now imagine this. Someone insults you in public. Instinct rises. Pride aches. Anger tempts you to lash back. But then you remember the value you chose to embody: integrity. You breathe, you steady yourself, and instead of reacting like a wounded animal, you respond as one guided by principle. The insult fades, but your integrity remains intact. That is power. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that dignity was not something granted by others, but something protected by living according to reason. To choose values over impulse is to live with consistency. It is to remain yourself, no matter how turbulent the world becomes. Moving further, let's look at disappointment. A door closes. An opportunity slips away. Your heart wants to drown in despair. But if perseverance is one of your chosen values, you do not collapse. You stand, dust yourself off, and move again. By placing value over feeling, you transform disappointment into endurance. History gives us a striking example in Socrates. Accused of corrupting the youth and defying the gods, he was given every chance to escape death, if only he would renounce his teachings or flee the city. Most would have grasped at life, but Socrates lived for values higher than survival: truth, integrity, courage. In court, he declared, the unexamined life is not worth living. Then, with calm resolve, he drank the cup of poison. His body perished, but his example endures eternally. Fear shackled many in Athens, but Socrates showed that to live by values is to be free, even at the edge of death. From here, reflect on your own life. How many mistakes trace back to emotion overruling value? A careless word in anger shatters a friendship. A hasty decision in fear closes the door on opportunity. A moment of desire blinds you, leaving behind regret that lingers for years. These are not accidents of fate. They are the cost of letting emotions steer the wheel. But contrast this with a life rooted in values. When integrity guides your speech, your words carry weight. When courage guides your choices, fear loses its bite. When compassion guides your actions, bitterness cannot take root. Values bring clarity, they bring steadiness, they bring meaning. At this stage, the Stoic practice becomes practical. Values are not to be admired from afar. They must be written, examined, lived. Sit quietly. Write down 3 values that matter most to you. Perhaps integrity, perseverance, compassion. Ask yourself daily, did I live in alignment with these today? Did I let emotions drag me away from them? The power of this practice is subtle but profound. Over time you notice change. You grow slower to anger because calmness is the value you chose. You grow less fearful because courage is the value you honor. You become less seduced by short desires because honesty and commitment to what lasts now carry more weight. Slowly, emotions stop ruling you. They become signals, but not masters. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his body. The body craves, the emotions surge, but freedom belongs to the one who resists being dragged." Real freedom is not doing whatever emotion demands. Real freedom is choosing in line with what the soul knows to be right. Now imagine life as a voyage. To be led by emotion is to let the wind decide your path. One day you are soaring high, the next you are dashed against the rocks. But to live by values is to cast anchor in the deep. The storms may rage, the waves may rise, but your vessel remains steady, your direction clear. Let us take another example. You feel fear before an opportunity, perhaps a speech, a new venture, a bold step into the unknown. The emotion whispers, stay back, stay safe. But your value is growth. Your value is courage. So you step forward despite the fear. And in doing so, you discover that fear was only smoke, easily passed through once you stopped obeying it. Or consider anger. A colleague undermines you, spreads lies, makes you look small. Emotion demands retaliation. But your value is composure. Your value is reason. You resist the temptation to fight fire with fire. Instead, you act with dignity. In time, others see the truth, and your honor stands taller than any argument could have built. This is the transformation Stoicism offers. It does not deny emotion. It acknowledges it, respects it even, as part of being human. But it refuses to hand over control. Emotions are waves. They rise, they fall. Values are bedrock. They remain. To live by values is to root yourself in what cannot be moved. Training the mind to live this way requires patience. It is discipline in daily reflection, courage in daily choices, humility in daily corrections. But the reward is immense. You become consistent, unmoved by temporary highs or lows. You act not for the approval of others, not to silence fear, not to indulge craving, but to remain true to what you have declared sacred. Here's where the lesson crystallizes. Emotions are not the enemy. They are signals, like clouds drifting across the sky. But to let them steer your life is to let your boat drift aimlessly across a wild sea. To live by values is to anchor yourself, to choose direction, to move with purpose. So ask yourself now, what are the 3 values you cannot betray? Write them. Live them. Let them become the compass that steadies your course. For storms will come, waves will crash, but with values as your anchor, you will never be lost. And from here, we arrive at the essence of Stoicism, the freedom of self-mastery. Not freedom to indulge every emotion, but freedom to stand above them. Not freedom to avoid hardship, but freedom to meet hardship with dignity. This is the highest freedom, the freedom to live a life that is whole, steady, and true. You do not need to bend the whole world to find peace. It begins closer than you think. It begins with the quiet discipline of your own mind. When you train your thoughts to see what truly deserves your energy and what deserves your release, life feels lighter. The noise around you keeps moving, yet you stand clear inside it. Choose response over impulse. Choose intention over habit. When emotions pull, return to the center you have built. You are not escaping life. You are meeting it with steadiness. This is how you stop being a victim of circumstance and become the author of your day. Adversity will still visit. Let it become your teacher. Use each challenge to practice patience, to practice courage, to practice compassion. A Stoic is not numb. A Stoic feels deeply and refuses to be ruled. That is real power. That is freedom. If this message helped you, consider supporting the journey. Tap like to help it reach someone who needs it. Subscribe and turn on notifications so we can keep building a resilient mind together, one practice at a time. Your presence matters here. Share a thought before you go. Comment, calm mind. As you step back into your day, carry one truth with you. You can always choose how you think. You can always return to the quiet space where clarity lives. Start small today. Breathe, notice, decide, repeat. You will be amazed at what begins to change when you keep your word to yourself. In the next video, we will explore simple daily rituals that anchor focus and protect your attention in a restless world. I am glad you are here. Keep going. You have more strength than you know.